Mexico is safer than the United States, at least according to recent remarks by Mexican President Obrador. But 1,017 U.S. likely voters beg to differ. 79% of them think the threat posed by Mexican drug cartels to the United States is serious, including 55% who say very serious. Only 3% say not at all serious. Men and women answer about the same, and young voters are slightly less concerned than older voters. But black voters and Republicans are the big standouts here. Black voters are almost 20 points less very concerned than other voters, and both Hispanic and white voters answer almost identically here. Here are the party numbers, and Democrats are 30 points less likely to say very serious than Republicans, but only 10 points less likely than independents. Regardless, about the same amount of each say the threat is not at all serious. Republicans usually are more concerned or worried about problems like this, especially in the Biden era. But speaking of Biden, who is least concerned about the threat of Mexican drug cartels, tying black voters for the overall lowest demographic, and being 5 points less likely to say the threat is very serious? Those who strongly approve of Joe Biden, of course. Now, that could be explained multiple ways, but likely a big part of it is that they trust him to handle the problem, similar to what the signal implied in our climate change numbers yesterday. And note again today, like yesterday, it's the Biden strongly disapproves with the most salient signal. Increasingly, it seems like normies have been warming to Biden somewhat over the last few months, leaving a very conservative and anti-government set of people behind in the strongly disapprove column. But here is the full-throated response to the Mexican president from U.S. likely voters. 69% of them, about as big and bipartisan a result as you could possibly get on something like this, say the U.S. government should designate Mexican drug cartels as terrorist organizations. Only 20% of likely voters say no. The results are pretty flat across gender and age, but here's party. Majorities of everyone say yes, but independents and Democrats are a little less convinced than Republicans, though they're still nearly 3-1 in favor. But now look at the race numbers. Black voters, who, as you recall, tied for the demographic least concerned by the threat of Mexican drug cartels, are also, by far, the least likely to say that the cartels should be declared terrorists. 5 points lower than the next lowest demographic, ideological liberals, though a plurality of them still think it's a good idea. If anyone wants to venture an informed guess here, drop it in the YouTube comments, especially if you can think of a follow-up question so we can dig a little deeper next time. Now, let's look at Biden approval numbers again, because this one is really interesting. The two groups closest together on this are Biden strongly approves and Biden strongly disapproves. It's the somewhat disapproves who are least in favor of declaring cartels terrorist organizations. Now, I have my hunch the strong approvers and strong disapprovers are likely more politically engaged and aware of the threat, and normies and the less politically engaged tend to dwell in the somewhats. But why are the somewhat disapproves the standouts here? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, before I check out, I want to tease our numbers for tomorrow. We asked a mega set of questions related to Republican leadership, and there are going to be some fireworks. Here's the list. Trump favorability, McConnell favorability, and McCarthy favorability. We'll be getting to see who's winning and losing since the dramatic launch of this latest Congress. We also asked which of those three is a better path forward for the Republican Party. And the best question, how likely is it that Republicans in Washington cooperated with Democrats to keep Trump out of the White House? Subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter so you don't miss the results. And make sure to watch our segment tomorrow on The Absolute Truth with Emerald Robinson. And finally, here's a parting thought for President Obrador, as well as a really great reason to sign up as a reader on RasmussenReports.com to support our work for the price of barely one Starbucks a month. It's all of our historical polling. Here's a really great one from January 2015. Which is most to blame for drug violence in Mexico? 24% of U.S. likely voters said Mexican drug producers, and another 21% said drug users in the United States. But 44% of voters, a plurality, said that it was the fault of government corruption in Mexico. Thanks for watching.